think about, reflect about. Another thing about disruptions, I think, talking about external disruptions, actually according to Buddhism, talking about mindfulness, meditation, disruption can be object, and should be objects of your meditation as well. It's not something to be just overcome. In a way, from a certain perspective, yes, they have to be overcome, they have to be dealt with. In another way, the life is intrinsically characterized by disruption. You can't run away from them. It's your own inner perspective of it. So in the practice of meditation, you have, for instance, the meditation on the physical body, the mindfulness of the body, mindfulness of feelings, mindfulness of thought, mindfulness of phenomena. You know that, the so-called fourfold mindfulness. Spriti Upasthana or Satipatthana, more popularly known. For instance, in the mindfulness of feeling, all feelings are disruptions. Your feeling of frustration, your feeling of pains. I'm talking about particularly depression, because today depression is a major problem of young people. Not today, it's not no more for young people. Most people have depressions in one way or another, different form. But don't be scared. I also have depression sometimes. Everybody has. According to Buddha, this is human nature. We can't accept it, but understand them, to deal with them, and actually in a way to deal with them happily and with faith. So disruptions can be objects of meditation, can help you to be liberated. If you really can feel pain, you can feel the fear of death, meditate, contemplate on them. If you can, through that, you can gain suddenly a breakthrough. In more traditional term, it's kind of enlightenment, and you feel that all the detachment that you talk about really is true, it's possible. You can just let go. Otherwise, it's just mere talk. Today in the world, a lot of koto chan, a lot of intellectual talks about letting go, about being in the present. In Hong Kong, many people say, well, the solution is to be in the present. Of course, I agree with you. Who doesn't know? But how much can we be in the present? For how long can we be in the present? How many of us can be in the present? Talking about dealing with disruption, give examples and concrete examples, and question is asked, what do you do with it right there? My answer will be a straightforward one. You can't do much right there, but you can do much throughout your life, the whole lifelong preparation. So you must come to that state of mind. Even letting go, even being a present, is something to be progressively, systematically cultivated, to arrive at. The Buddha is one who is constantly in the present, but we are not. And we better be honest that we are not. Talks about defilement is enlightenment, Fanao Puti, for example. This is an example. For us, Fanao is Fanao, Puti is Puti. Defilements are defilement, enlightenment is enlightenment. They are different, and we have to go from A to B. We have to approach dualistically. Although the ultimate spiritual domain, we know, is characterized by the transcendence of non-duality, Buddha. But this human, the way the brain is wired, is to operate dualistically, discriminatively. So make use of it, until and unless we come to, like the state of Buddha, when we go beyond duality, when we gain the non-discriminative wisdom, so-called, I know in Chinese Buddhism you know that, it's Wu Fen Bei Zhi, until and unless that we need all this. So disruption also, letting go, being in the presence can be very nice terms, but we have to know that this cannot be achieved just at that very moment. The solution is not at that moment. The solution is in your whole life. So what does that mean? Think further. It means the solution involves a lot more than just that moment, in the sense that we had to begin with commitment. In traditional, I say we have to begin with faith. Whether it is Theravada Buddhism, whether it's Mahayana Buddhism, faith is a beginning in all religions. And Buddhism must not shy away again from faith. You know, people say, you talk about faith, young people, intelligent people will run away. It is not like that. Not in my experience. As a young man, I was interested in mathematics and scientific ideas also. But I know that faith touched my heart much more than just all these rational, logical validities in equations and so on. So we should really assess our emotion as human beings. Understand that these emotions can be used in a spiritual way. Disruptions can be used in spiritual ways. You know. So with faith, with commitment. So, for example, in Buddhism, we talk about taking refuge. That is a step when you really make decision. That's it. That is, I have found my ultimate goal. That is going to be my life, however imperfect I am. However many times I will fall down and sleep on the floor, I will try to get up and walk. That's because I have a commitment. I have a goal. I have a vision. You see, so you can't arrive at it just instantly out of context. So the word I want to emphasize is context. Look at the moving path. You start with so-called, I don't call it right understanding. That's the worst English translation. Okay? It's something like more like proper vision, or even perfect vision. Samyak drishti, or samaditthi in Pali. Sama means it's not right as opposed to wrong, not in the conventional way, but something that accords with reality, accords with the experience of enlightenment, if you like, stemming from ultimately the Buddha's own enlightenment. So, but then you start with that, with the vision, then you go on to conjure up your emotion. That's the second step. Your motivation, your energy. Your heart must be involved, in other words. Then only you can transform your life. Without the second step, all these steps can be just intellectual. There can be nice data on the book, for example. But with a vision, with your motivations properly set up, then only you can begin to transform the rest of your life through the other parts, such as, for instance, so-called proper communication. How do I go about having a relationship with others, communicate with others? That's the so-called samavacha. How do I go about living my life in a society, from which I came to be divorced? My occupation, my livelihood must have a relationship with others in a way, in a manner that is spiritually conducive to myself and to others. That is so-called proper livelihood. How do I make spiritual effort? That is called proper effort. And so on, meditation, mindfulness, you see? So different steps. All these other steps can only take effect in a spiritual way with the first two as the basis. Begin with the proper vision. Mobilize your energy through emotion, that's the second step, and then the other steps. So you can see that if you ask me, what's the solution? What can I do right now? I'm having depression, and I don't think any doctor can tell you, just pop this aspirin into you, you solve every problem. This is the problem now today in Buddhism and in religion. They think the thing of the Dhamma is just aspirin. Something is wrong in this way, you have this medicine. Something wrong that way, you have that medicine. We all know that even the doctor tells you all the medicines have side effects. They can destroy you also. Yeah? In any case, most of these so-called medicines are good, but I'm taking diabetes pills every day. I don't neglect them. So this is what I'm talking about. I don't deny, I don't repudiate all this interest, all this concern about Western technologies. But then they must be integrated into your whole existence. And that integration requires much more than and also cannot be dependent totally, exclusively on that particular moment, but it's a whole life. It involves a change of lifestyle, it involves commitment, it involves emotion, it involves faith. That's where religion comes in. Call it Buddhism, call it Christianity, it doesn't matter. You see? So, yesterday I heard, maybe I'm not going to use very much of my side. When I start speaking, my idea flow out from my heart, not from my brain. I had some very intelligent and very meaningful questions from the audience here. I'm very pleased with them. Somebody asked about something about commenting on these beautiful presentations and in a very educated way, you know. You need a lot of knowledge to understand all these charts and all these things, you know, statistics. And the person asked something to the effect, correct me if I'm wrong, what I remember is that, how about is there a difference between the educated and uneducated? Okay? Do all these things mean anything to an uneducated person? Huh? Imagine the amount of time and energy you spend in analyzing data, going around Googles and internet, and how much time have you got left to think about the Buddha's teaching and about your life in a spiritual way? How much more time you have got left to practice meditation, to develop your faith? Anyway, there are some people who really can do it, so I don't deny that, but not generally for everybody anyway. That person asked a very pertinent question. Yes. Does it require different education? Do you need special neuroscience, brain science knowledge to understand these things? If someone doesn't understand, is he going to be deprived, you know, of the chance of understanding Buddhism? We're talking about Buddhism, you know. Don't forget, this is whatever you want to do. It is a context of a Buddhist institute. So this is my suggestion. So anyway, coming back to this, you see, coming back to like being in the present. That means through mindfulness. Mindfulness is not something conceptual thing. We all have mindfulness, but our mindfulness are not stable, okay? And to be able to be truly in the present, that requires a path, and that path requires commitment. That commitment requires the heart, requires emotion, and that's where religion comes in. So the other question the person asks is, how about someone who doesn't have religion, who's not a Buddhist? So today I want to talk a bit about it. What I'm inquiring is into the very nature of human existence, or the very nature of a human being. My understanding is that religious need is intrinsic to human existence. It's rooted in the very existence of a human being. When it exists, you cannot escape the need for religion. And religiosity is a true fact. Now, there has been reference to the so-called intrinsic quality. I think it's a good term. For me, intrinsic quality is the so-called virtue of a human being. And virtue consists in not being able to donate a lot of money and things like that. There's also virtuous, but through virtue is the very nature of a human being. It's like the Chinese conception of de. De is the unique nature, you see, and it also means virtue. It's a very corresponding concept. It's interesting to see that in Western, in the Greek conception of human virtue. Talking about virtue means the very nature of human being. That is to say, the innate good qualities that can be, as a human potential, that can be and should be unfolded. Right? So here, let me, a little bit I can use for my own slide is, let me quote a modern thinker who had inspired me as a young man, and I read his work something like 40 years ago when I was as undergraduate, and very idealistic, and among the thinkers who really influenced me, one was, some of them were the humanistic psychoanalysts and psychologists, particularly people like Erich Fromm, the Abraham Maslow and Rogers and these thinkers. Because I think that their concern and the Buddhist concern are very similar. It's human predicament, human problems, and it's a belief, it's a conviction that only man, that is a human. I'm not talking about, I'm not excluding femininity, not in that sense. Man in the sense of humanity. Man alone knows man's problem. Man alone can solve man's problem. So their concern is man-centered. And that point is totally in agreement with Buddhism. So Buddhism is called a humanistic religion. Now Erich Fromm handles this. He's an interesting person because, before him, we know that in the history of Western psychology and psychoanalysis, it was Sigmund Freud who initiated the whole idea of the unconscious, right? But his idea of the subconscious, unconscious is a very negative one. He believed that anything unconscious is always negative, always bad, always dirty. You can't face your own sexual feeling, you suppress it and become unconscious. You can't face your feeling of hatred. For example, you may have hatred to your family members, and your community tells you that you should not hate your father, or you cannot hate your father. You suppress it. So ultimately, all these negative emotions of passions, desires, and hatred, which are actually characteristics of human nature, they come to be unconscious. And that is whole conception of unconsciousness. So religious need also is like that. For him, it's always unhealthy. A healthy person doesn't require religion. Religion is only for the weaklings. We hear this. So, why do we think like that today? Many people think about it. That is a result of westernization. We don't pause for a moment to think how much of our thinking have been conditioned by Western cultures. Especially Malaysia, Singapore, Hong Kong, all these places, we are colonized. The textbooks we read are all based on those values and so on, you see. So from the theistic, Western kind of, Judeo-Christian kind of conditioning, then we were swept along together with them, by idea of rationalism, scientific ideas, logical thinking, and then when we come back to Buddhism, we love our Buddhism and that we are in conflict because we have been conditioned by these Western ideas. And Western ideas says that we have to be rational, we have to be scientific, and many Buddhist teachings are irrational, non-rational. In fact, the very idea of a religious need is a very irrational one now. As I said, Freud was one champion like that. At that time, he was very confident. He was almost overconfident. Then we know, for instance, there came his distinguished disciple called Jung, C.G. Jung, you see? Jung's idea is a kind of rebellion to his masters. He thinks of the unconscious as a source of inspiration. To understand human nature, you have to go to the unconscious. So it's not something dirty, not something negative. Yeah? In fact, that's where truth really lies. Go back to your mind, but the unconscious mind. And he seems to have been influenced by Buddhism. We know his whole idea of the collective unconscious, compare that to, for example, the alaya vijnana, the common seed idea, the 共相种子. That kind of alaya vijnana idea, I'm sure, has influenced him. But he seems to go to kind of the other extreme in rebelling against his master. So people then, they came along, people like Fromm and others, who then proposed that the unconscious mind can be both irrational and rational. There are two aspects. Everything should be looked at in two aspects, the rational and the irrational. So he applies that thinking to the whole question that we are talking about, that is religion and religious need in relation to human nature. Do we need religion? What is true religiosity? His conclusion is that actually every existence needs religion. Then he has to explain what religion is, right? Naturally the question arises, what do you mean by religion when you say that everybody needs religion? When you say that everybody has religiosity, talk about this as intrinsic human quality, what do you mean by that? For example, does it mean rushing to the temples regularly and offering chopstick and bowing to the Buddha, taking a rosary and just reciting Amitabha, or praying to God, going to church, confessing to your priest? He's not talking about that. He's saying religion and religiosity in the most fundamental sense. That's where I want to link this up with fundamental human nature. So I fully agree with him on that point. And let me quote him. This is from. He says, of course now this is kind of out of my brain, I might be out one or two words. I have his books in somewhere, but when I'm writing these slides, I didn't check the wording, but I think I'm not far out. He said, the question is not religion or not, but which religion? Powerful question that sticks in my mind since my younger days. The question is not religion or not, but which religion? Then in another place, he wrote many books. This is from Man for Himself, and he has Religion and Psychoanalysis, and he finally co-author with D.T. Suzuki. You know, everybody knows him. Had a book on Zen and psychoanalysis and existentialism. There were 3 authors, and he was one of them. And you can see that slowly he was being influenced by Buddhism. In his earlier books, he hardly mentioned Buddhism, but he might be already Buddhistic. But later on, he consciously mentions, talk about Zen ideas, talks about the even early Buddhism. You know, even when he discusses about dream as the so-called forgotten language. You know, he relates to, for instance, Minintapanna, question of Mininta, and so on. So obviously, clearly influenced by Buddhism. So these are people whom we should, who are worthy to be consulted. So this is one question. Another question, elsewhere he says, the question is not idealist or not, but the question is not ideal or not, but which ideal? The question is not ideal or not, but which ideal? So in a similar tone. So what he means is that as a human existence, that need for religion is rooted, as I say, in the very existence of human being. You have no choice. When you exist in space-time, there is a religious need. When you exist in space-time, you are an idealist. You might look like a very rational person, logical person. We know that, you know. Many so-called rational decisions are really preceded by emotional, often irrational, or at least non-rational thought. You have decided what you want to do, and then you rationalize and try to prove that it is the most logical, you know, more appropriate. And that happened to us. And that's what I have learned from Buddhism. And that Buddhist teaching is also shared by this Western thinker. So Fromm is an interesting idea because he's a Westerner, highly educated, he's a professor of psychology, you know, and he studied not only Buddhism, he studied Western religions also, and so on. But this is not the occasion to talk about these other things, but just to talk about his whole idea of religion. So he said that scientists also, logicians also need religions. Look at Einstein, you know, and he told us that much of his success, discoveries, you know, really were on the basis of intuition. His thought experiments, his intuitions. He feels first and then he thinks. We have to learn to feel first in Buddhism and then to think, really, I think. So that's why I emphasize about this idea of even the listening. What do you want to listen? And how do you listen are very important. Not just the material, not the modern methodology, technology about learning, no. What do you want to take notes on? It's not how well you take the notes. How much what you are listening can touch your heart, can transform you. That's more important, right? And Si is not just intellectual reflection, but it goes into your different levels of consciousness, sinks down, and they become meaningful to you at higher and higher levels, and motivate you, mobilize energy to want to practice and cultivate. This is Xiu. There's a third one. Wen Si Xiu. So, same terms, but we mustn't fit them into modern theoretical system. It's the other way around. Modern theoretical theory, yes, useful, good, yes, but fit them into Buddhist teaching. So, coming back to religion, religiosity. The basic idea is this. Religiosity doesn't consist in going to church or the temple. Although these are extremely important and useful exercises, behavior, I would say. Don't shy away from this. In my little center, Buddha-Dharma Center, every Sunday, I lead students and others to bow in front of Buddha, to chant stanza, and to meditate. Every Sunday. And the very Sunday when I left this place, I had a session there. That is besides my teaching as a professor, and people think, why do you do like that? Usually you can talk about it up the author, but you don't do that, But I feel so happy that I'm the one that is inspired more than others. According to Buddha, when you do like this as a teacher, you yourself become enlightened. There are stories, when someone is enlightened in the process of really talking about, sharing about their faith with the audience. Anyway, so religiosity doesn't consist in this external act. Not religion also in the sense of institutional religions. Today, even Buddhism also, we can't rationalize too much, praise ourselves too much. It also has become very much institutionalized, too formalized, to the extent that you feel a lot of emptiness in all these Buddhist bodies. So, for example, I don't talk about Singapore. I don't want to touch Singapore. Let me get examples from overseas. I find the Buddhist association, what they're concerned about? Concerned about raising more and more money, and they say our bank account has so many billions, and we have so many thousands of members. They pride themselves in these figures. We have this activity, that activity. They sound so busy, so highly organized. We have different aspects of so-called humanities and so on. But when you look into it, well, it's very empty. That's where people get depression, when they feel empty inside. We have to face this. So, religiosity is our active, serious response as a human being to existential predicament. When we exist, like, for example, using a more traditional term, our existence is characterized by, I wouldn't use Walker, but I would say suddenly impermanence, unsatisfactoriness, we all know that, right? So when a person can really become mindful, and I'm talking about mindfulness, mindful of this, mindful of your human nature as a human, mindful of your predicament, and mindful of the fact that, yes, as a human you can transcend it, and mindful of the fact that, yes, there's a part that can do it. It has been exemplified by a historical person, the Buddha, and others. When you become mindful of this, at the most fundamental level, you respond to it actively, sincerely, seriously, systematically. That's being religious. That's religiosity. That kind of religiosity exists in every human being. The question is different, it's just whether you are aware of it, whether you are mindful of it or not. So our task is to bring out that awareness, cultivate it. It's all there. Even a beggar, he wants to exist, but exist more happily. A scientist also has a belief system, has a value systems, He believes in methodology. He believes that science can solve all problems. He believes that logic can solve all problems for him. And he believes that spending his whole life, so-called sacrificing his family life and other aspects of social life, but spending all his life in the lab is his more meaningful existence. He is very religious. So you can't say that a scientist, a logician doesn't need religion. Everybody needs. If you don't have it, if you don't deal with it, you can't exist. And if you don't deal with it properly, you have problems. You have problem of depression. That's where depression comes in. There's destructiveness comes in. Eric Fromm said, he has a novel called something like The Anatomy of Human Violence. And he believes that, there's this process of the intrinsic a need to want to unfold a human potential. That's what it means by to be alive. To be alive is to be aware of this fact and to actively unfold your potential. That's the meaning of being alive. And when that process is somehow blocked or discouraged, problem starts. You don't find meaning, you are frustrated, you have depression today. There are clinics for depression everywhere. And you don't have a context. You don't know what to do, in other words. So you collapse, psychologically, mentally. So this is the problem of disruption today in the most fundamental sense. So the solution, I believe, is to systematically cultivate awareness, mindfulness, talk about mindfulness. Today, mindfulness, I'm going to offer a few comments, it's already finished, right? Mindfulness practice is used as a stress reduction technology, and there are a lot of stress reduction techniques and centers, and it's very popular in Hong Kong, for example, and in the West. They don't mention a word about Buddhism. Okay? But what I'm concerned is not so much about the hypocrisy and no acknowledgement of Buddhism. It's all from the Buddha's teaching, but that's fine. As long as it benefits mankind, you don't need the label of Buddhism. That's true. But what I'm more concerned about is that these things are not taught and applied in the proper context. It doesn't have an underlying mentality of wanting to solve human problem at highest level. It's just things of it. It just uses mindfulness or Buddha teaching as an aspirin. And today in medicine we learn, for example, in the first day, that the more important thing is to be aware of your life, how you live a healthy life, how to have prevention before sickness occurs, right? And then when you do have cancer, how to understand that death is also only just one side of the fact, and you feel happy that do your best now. There's no use to worry about it, but start another life. You have the conviction that life goes on, for example. All these are what I mean by context. So mindfulness, and all these techniques, all these analysis, all these studies, if they are devoid of the spiritual context, then to me, from the spiritual point of view, they are not so meaningful. That's only one thing. That's talked about very lightly. More seriously, this kind of technique cannot bring out the true effect as taught by the Buddha in these meditations. And most seriously, they may lead to very serious negative disaster. The reason is, today we don't have time to go into this topic. One thing, perhaps in the discussion we can bring out more, because if it is true that religiosity, in the sense I defined it, is within every human being's unconscious, whether you're aware of it, you need religion and you need to respond to it, but if you don't know how to respond to it or you respond to it negatively, you destroy yourself, you suffer and make others suffer. Yeah? So you can see that when you meditate, you become more mindful, right? When you become more mindful, you're more able to access your deeper and deeper level of your own unconscious. You know yourself better. Things that you don't like to face, you don't want to know about yourself, come out. Problems that you have suppressed, like in the Freudian sense, will arise. How are you going to deal with them when these things happen? How are you going to deal with them? They can't, people just collapse. I've seen that in the West, in meditation sessions. In those sessions who talk about meditation. This is not in the context of our mindfulness practice. When I was young, I was into another meditation movement called TM. I'm sure it's also popular here, has been popular here. As a young man, I was attracted to it, and then they talk so much about the physiological benefits. Too overemphasized. And what their philosophy is very simple. Get the right technique. If the technique is correct, everything follows. But is it true? When I look around, in my own case and my other schoolmates, and so on, the dropout rate is so high. And the people say, first couple of weeks is a big kick, because they tell you that the TM, transcendental conscious experience, is very blissful, and then you plunge into blissful cosmic consciousness and in and out. It sounds so nice, so easy. All you need to do, they say, not to change your lifestyle, to go on, yeah, just as you are. But do the right meditation, everything will follow. But it doesn't follow. And when it doesn't follow, when more serious, among these meditators, if they stop, the dropout is even better. It's fine. But if you don't drop out, you seriously pursue it, you don't know how to face yourself. What's happening to me? I'm so sincere, I'm meditating, I'm chanting the Buddha, but I have more problem, I have more desire, I have more hatred, anger, shall I commit suicide? Shall I burn the temple down, Shall I run away from Buddhism, become an anti-Buddhist? All these things will happen. This is what I mean by negative effects. Now, in traditional Buddhism, in Chinese Buddhism, you have reference to this in different terms. For example, chanting is one type of phenomena, not quite expressed in a modern way, although I promise to be a little bit more traditional, but perhaps what I say are not very traditional also, my terminology. But this is to bring out the point. You see, you need a context. Meditation is a context. Practice of mindfulness is a context. Religion is a context. That context involves your whole being, your whole life. So to meditate is not as simple as learning the technique. To understand where this meditation comes from, why it arises, why is it needed, how is it integrated? Your samadhi, how is it integrated to all the other aspects in the Noble Path, for example? Not only that, just look at a simple thing like the threefold teaching, 戒定慧, Sila, Samadhi, Prajna. Samadhi cannot be isolated, extracted, abstracted from the threefold context. The threefold training is the total context. It's samadhi in sila, samadhi, prajna. If you isolate it, then it's no more samadhi. It may be some kind of exercise, but it's not what the Buddha is talking about. What the Buddha is recommending as something that can solve your problem as a human being. And in fact, it can go wrong. So it must be based on sila, for example. And then you must have a goal. So that's what Eric Fromm said. Religion for him is a frame of orientation with an object of devotion. If you define religion that way, then you can see that everybody, including the scientists, including the beggar, needs religion. And so the message is, for a true solution, bring out that awareness. That is the most important mindfulness practice. Not just to make you less stressful, but to be mindful of reality, mindful of true human nature. And that there is a path, there's a Buddha's path, through which you can transcend this predicament. I think I've spoken over time, and in a modern symposium like that, I'm not supposed to go on, fortunately. I do in other places, so thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Venerable. May we please invite you to take a seat for our panel discussion. Thank you very much.